The perfect trap. They say money can't buy love, but what if love was never the goal? I signed the contract with a steady hand, one pen, one signature, one step closer to the revenge I'd been planning for 15 years. Lucas Hayes, billionaire, CEO, cold, calculating, every woman's fantasy until they met his eyes. Because behind that charm, behind that smile, was a man who built his empire on destruction, including mine. You understand the terms? He asked, eyes never blinking. Completely, I answered. It was a marriage on paper, a deal sealed with ink, not vows. No love, no feelings, no future. Just 1 year, then a quiet divorce, a generous payout, and I'd disappear from his life. Or so he thought. But Lucas didn't know who I really was. Didn't recognize the girl his father's company destroyed. Didn't know that I'd spent my entire youth watching my family fall apart because of his name. He thought I was just another pretty face, desperate for a rich man's favor. But I wasn't here to marry him. I was here to ruin him. The wedding was cold, silent, efficient. No guests, no flowers, just signatures, champagne, and a camera flash. He didn't even touch my hand. Perfect. The less he cared, the easier it would be to bring him down. For the public, we were newlyweds. For the media, a mysterious love story. For his investors, a strategic partnership. But behind closed doors, I slept in a separate room. I played the perfect wife by day and the silent ghost by night. What he didn't know was I had access to his passwords, his emails, his private documents, all hidden behind firewalls and encrypted systems. But I had studied, trained, prepared. I wasn't just a woman with a grudge, I was a weapon. 1 month into the marriage, I had already collected enough to shatter his empire. But I didn't pull the trigger. Not yet. Because I wanted more. I wanted him to trust me, to let his guard down, so that when I finally struck, he would feel it. Then something unexpected happened. He started asking questions. About my past, my childhood, my family. He stared at me longer, paused before walking away. And one night, he knocked on my door. I want to get to know you, he said quietly. No contracts, no business. I stared at him. This wasn't part of the plan. I wasn't supposed to feel anything, not even curiosity. But for the first time, I hesitated, because beneath that icy exterior, Lucas wasn't just the monster I thought he was. There was something else. A shadow, a crack. A truth I hadn't prepared for. Deception in the double game. Lucas Hayes was changing. Subtly. Subtly. But I noticed. He used to avoid eye contact. Now he watched me like he was curious. He used to speak in clipped corporate tones. Now there was something softer underneath. And worst of all, he started asking about my past. Where did you go to school? Why don't you talk about your family? What happened to your father? Each question was a dagger, not because I couldn't answer, but because I already had. In my head. 1,000 times. 1,000 ways. All lies. I had created a fake identity, new name, new records, even a carefully planted backstory. Just enough truth to seem real. Just enough lies to keep my secret buried. But Lucas was smart, too smart. And something in him was starting to doubt me. So I flipped the game. I opened up strategically. Told him about a hard childhood, a distant father, how I'd learned to survive on my own. Every word designed to trigger sympathy or curiosity, or both. And it worked. He started spending more time at home, joined me for breakfast, watched me read by the fireplace. Once he even smiled. A real one, small, but real. And that terrified me, because if he started feeling something, so might I. One night I found him in his office, alone, reading something. When I entered, he closed the laptop too fast. Working? Am running? I asked. He nodded, didn't meet my eyes. And I knew that look. I'd worn it 1,000 times. He was hiding something. So I waited until he left, then I opened the laptop. Password protected, of course. But what Lucas didn't know was he used the same passcode for everything. The name of his dead brother, Matthew, I typed it in, and what I saw made my blood run cold. He was investigating me, hiring private security firms, tracing my real name, connecting dots I thought I'd hidden. He had files, old yearbooks, public records, a single blurry photo of me at 16, standing beside my father, and underneath it, a company name. The company his father destroyed. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to suspect that I wasn't just a convenient contract bride. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I had pushed too hard, moved too fast. Because now the game wasn't one-sided. He was playing too. The next morning, he looked at me differently, eyes sharp, calculating, like he was waiting for me to slip. And I smiled back, because I wouldn't. But deep inside, a new fear began to grow. What if Lucas wasn't the villain I thought he was? What if I wasn't the only one with scars? What if he had been hurt too? Because in one of those files, there was a note written by Lucas. If she is who I think she is, then she's not here by accident. When all secrets are unveiled, secrets don't stay buried forever. They just wait for the perfect moment to explode. And mine were about to detonate. I knew Lucas suspected me. But what I didn't know was that he had already begun to strike back. Silently, strategically. Just like me. 3 days after I found the files, Lucas invited me to dinner. A private rooftop, elegant table for two, soft jazz playing in the background. His smile was charming, but his eyes were too calm. "You've been quiet lately," he said, pouring me wine. "Everything all right?" "Perfect," I replied. "Lies wrapped in lipstick." He leaned back. "I was thinking we should renew the contract." I nearly choked. "What?" "A second year, double the payout." He said it like it meant nothing. But I knew that kind of move. It was a test. "Why?" I asked. He smiled. "Yeah, because I like control." The tension in the air was sharp. I played my part. To anyone watching, we were the perfect power couple. But beneath the smiles was war. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I went to his office again. I knew it was risky, but I needed answers. What I didn't expect was another laptop, hidden behind a false drawer. Password protected. Different this time, harder. I hacked it, slowly, delicately. And when the screen opened, my breath caught. There were surveillance videos of me. Walking, sleeping, even whispering on the phone with Jenna. He had been watching me since the beginning. And then another file, labeled her father's death. My chest tightened. I clicked. Photos of the day my father died. Newspaper clippings, internal memos from Lucas's family company, and one document signed by Lucas himself approving a project that bankrupted my father 6 years ago. But here's the twist. That signature was forged. Lucas didn't destroy my family. His father did, using Lucas's name to shift blame, to protect himself. Lucas had no idea until recently. That's why he married me. That's why he started investigating me. Because deep down, he thought I was there to kill him. And for a while, he was right. I backed away from the desk, mind spinning. Everything I had believed, everything I had planned, was built on a lie. He didn't destroy my life. He was a pawn, just like me. Behind me, the door creaked. I turned, and there he stood. Lucas, silent, watching. "Looking for something?" he asked. I couldn't speak. The truth was too heavy, so I handed him the USB. "The signature," I said softly. "It wasn't yours." He took it, paused, then nodded. "I know." Silence. Then, "Why didn't you stop me?" I asked. He exhaled. "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go, and because I owed you the truth." We stood in that office, not as enemies, not as husband and wife, but as two broken people, both betrayed by the same man. And now, the game had changed. It was no longer about revenge. It was about justice. When enemies become lovers. We didn't speak for days, not because there was nothing to say, but because everything had changed. The walls between us had crumbled. There were no more secrets, no more games, no more pretending. Just two people, wounded, exposed, and standing in the wreckage of everything we thought we knew. Lucas had been betrayed by the one man he trusted most, his father. And I had spent years chasing revenge on the wrong person. The guilt nearly swallowed me. One night, I found him on the rooftop. He didn't look like a billionaire anymore. No arrogance, no arm, just a man, broken. "I saw the report," he said quietly. "Your father, he tried to fight back." I nodded. "But he lost everything." Lucas looked at me. "I'm sorry." It wasn't forced, it wasn't convenient, it was real. And for the first time, I let myself feel it. Not hatred, not control, not strategy, but something far more dangerous. Vulnerability. I stepped closer. "Lucas," I hesitated. "I hated you every day, every minute. I built my life around watching you fall." He didn't flinch. "I deserved it," he said. "At least I thought I did." And then he touched my hand, not to dominate, not to control, but to connect. And I let him. Because somewhere in the war, we had stopped being enemies. We spent that night together. No contracts, no masks, just truth. Raw, messy, unforgiving, and honest. The next morning, we made a decision. We wouldn't let his father get away with it. The forged signature, the illegal acquisitions, the shell companies. We had everything we needed. Together, we delivered it all to the press, the investors, the authorities. And the storm hit harder than we ever imagined. Lucas's father was indicted, charged with fraud, conspiracy, and falsifying federal documents. The empire he'd built collapsed overnight. Reporters begged for statements, board members panicked, shareholders revolted. But Lucas stood tall, and beside him was me. We faced the world hand in hand, not as husband and wife by contract, but by choice. Months later, the media still whispered, "How did it all happen? Was it a real love story? Was she just a pawn who turned queen?" Let them wonder, because they didn't need to know. This story wasn't for headlines. It was for us. We returned to the rooftop, the same place we once stood as strangers. Only this time we weren't pretending. "You still want that divorce?" he asked, half smiling. I smirked. "Only if I get half your soul in the settlement." He leaned in. "You already own all of it." And that's how it ended. Not with revenge, not with destruction, but with revelation, redemption, and real love born from war. The final move. 6 months had passed. The headlines faded. The empire was rebuilt under new management. Lucas was no longer the shadow of his father. He was his own man now. And me? I wasn't the vengeful girl chasing ghosts anymore. We moved into a quiet villa outside the city. No bodyguards, no secrets, no contracts. Just us and the weight of everything we'd been through. But peace never lasts. Not when your past was built on fire. One afternoon, Lucas came home, face pale, hands shaking. I'd never seen him like that. He handed me a letter, handwritten, no return address. Inside was a single sentence. "Blood only settles when the last one stands and falls." Along with the letter was a photo of my mother. It was old. She looked scared, worried, pregnant. And standing beside her, "Lucas is his father." My chest went cold. I stared at Lucas. "You knew?" He shook his head. "No, I swear to you, I never saw this. I don't know what it means." But deep down, I already did. It wasn't just our fathers that had business. There was blood between them, blood neither of us knew about. I began digging. Late nights, hidden records, legal files buried in the deepest corners of sealed archives. And what I found shattered everything. My mother wasn't just a victim. She had once been engaged to Lucas's father. Before everything. Before me. But she left, ran, disappeared. Pregnant. And that meant one thing. Lucas and I weren't strangers. We weren't just former enemies. We were half-siblings. I dropped the files, fell to the floor, suffocating. Everything we'd been through, everything we'd felt, everything we became, built on a lie neither of us chose. Lucas found me in the dark. I couldn't look at him, couldn't breathe, couldn't even speak. He knelt beside me, hands trembling, face pale. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I swear I would never have let this happen if I had known." But did it matter? The world wouldn't forgive us, the law wouldn't understand us. And worse, could we forgive ourselves? We spent the next week in silence. Lawyers called, papers were filed. The marriage said nullified. But in those quiet days, we still met on the rooftop, still exchanged glances. Because despite the blood, despite the past, despite the darkness, our connection wasn't just love. It was pain. It was survival, but it was truth. The story didn't end in court or with revenge. It ended with two broken souls looking at each other and knowing that sometimes the deepest bond that isn't born from family, but from the fire, they survive together, the silence between us. They say silence is peaceful, but between us, it was torture. Since the truth came out, we hadn't touched, hadn't kissed, hadn't even shared a bed. We barely spoke, but we still saw each other. In the hallway, in the garden, on the rooftop, the places that once held meaning. Now, they held ghosts. The annulment came fast. Lucas made sure of it. No press, no scandal. Everything was cleaned, quiet, perfect, just like him. But inside, we were a mess. A beautiful, tragic mess. One night, I found him sitting on the edge of our old bed, hands gripping a photo of us, laughing before we knew, before the world came crashing down. He looked up. "I've replayed it 1,000 times," he said. "If I'd known sooner, would I have stopped myself?" I sat down beside him. "Would you have?" I whispered. Silence. Then, "No," his voice broke. "Because I didn't fall for your bloodline. I fell for your soul." I wanted to scream, cry, I hate him. But how could I, when I felt the same? We weren't siblings in the way the world understood. We had no childhood memories together, no shared history. Just DNA and a love the world would never accept. But this wasn't about what others thought. It was about what we would do with the truth. So we did the only thing we could. We left. We sold everything, closed the accounts, donated most of the money to causes both our families once harmed, and vanished. A small house by the sea, no staff, no boardrooms, no rings, just space, time, and the pain we carried. There were moments we reached for each other. Moments the love came rushing back, but we always stopped. Because as much as we wanted to forget, we couldn't. Until one morning, Lucas handed me a letter. Sealed in black wax. My father, he said, it was sent from prison. I hesitated, opened it. Inside were 4 words. You were never siblings. I froze. Lucas grabbed the second page. A lab report, official, dated. DNA test result. His father had lied again. Lucas and I, we weren't related. We never had been. It was all a final manipulation. I dropped the letter, my hand shaken. Tears streamed down my face, but this time, not from pain, from relief. He stepped forward. Can I hold you now? He asked, voice shaken. I didn't answer, I just fell into him. Because everything we'd lost was never truly gone. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The redemption doesn't come easily, especially when your love story began with a lie and almost ended with one. The DNA results changed everything. Not just the facts, not just our status, but our future. We weren't siblings, we were never siblings. It had all been a final trick, a cruel, calculated play by a man who didn't want us to win. And for a moment, he almost succeeded. But the truth came too late to erase the pain, the walls we had built, the distance we created. It still lingered. Even now, even after the tears, the embrace, the relief. Lucas sat across from me on the porch, a mug of coffee in his hand, the waves crashing in the background. Do we just go back? He asked, to how things were. I looked at him, at the man I had once vowed to destroy, then learned to love, then lost, then found again. I don't want to go back, I said. I want to go forward. He smiled, a real one, not polished, not perfect, just his. We didn't rush anything, didn't remarry immediately, didn't post pictures. We took our time, relearning each other, rebuilding trust, not from obligation, not from trauma, but from choice. One night, months later, we returned to the rooftop, where it all began, where we once drank wine and hid lies behind smiles. But tonight, there were no lies left. Lucas pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped, but he didn't open it. He placed it in my hand. I don't need you to wear this for the world, he said. I want you to wear it because you know me now, all of me, and you still choose me. I opened the box, a ring. Simple, elegant. Inside, engraved, built from fire, and I said yes. Not to a contract, not to revenge, not to obligation, but to him, to us, to the truth. We married again, and privately, no press, no performance, just a vow to never let the past define our future. Years passed, we built a new company together, one focused on restoring what old empires destroyed. We helped rebuild homes, fund scholarships, empower women like the one I used to be, lost, angry, searching for justice. Because now I had found mine, not in revenge, not in power, but in forgiveness, healing, and a love that survived everything. The end.